Hey folks, we're back. I think it's running a little faster now. I just did a refresh, and I think it was going a little better here. So we're going to look at some options here in the from clause. You're looking at section 7.4. So far all we were doing is selecting from a single table. But as we know, the idea with our database is to have these relationships. Like one table relate to other instances in another table through the primary key and foreign key, where our foreign key references the primary key of another table. So if we looked at our product table and our vendor table, right, the relationship between product and vendor here is that product has a vendor code, right? So one vendor will have many products. One product has a single vendor. So we need to join the tables here. Now there's a couple kinds of joins. The natural join is not preferred. We generally don't want to use that one at all. So we're just going to skip it. You can read about it, but again, we're not really going to use it. We're going to do an inner join on using the on keyword. So the reason why that one is preferred is it's the most flexible. So I am a big fan of using join on. The book is a big fan of using the using keyword for joins because they do this terrible thing where all of their attributes have these ugly names, but they are distinct. So vcode matches vcode from vendor. I'm not fond of that, but you know, that's okay. There's different formats. You can use different formats. I prefer to have my IDs just be called ID. Right? That's the ID field for it here. And then in the other table, this would be vendor ID. And I would know that vendor ID matches the vendor table ID field. Again, just a different style preference, so that's okay. But if we want to join them and get all of the information, we're going to say, hey, select star from, we'll do from here, we're going to say product, and then we say inner join on, inner join vendor on, and then we need to tell it, okay, what fields match. So we're going to say product dot, product dot v code. Right, so the product v code. Now we have to give it the table name prefix here before we give it the column name, because there are two columns named v code, and if we just say v code, it's not going to know which v code we want to look at. So we'll say we're on v code equals vendor.vcode. So now we're going to get all of the fields from the product table and all of the fields from the vendor table where the vendor code matches between the two. So we're saying, okay, link these together here. So anywhere we have that foreign key, primary key relationship, right, we have that relation from product over to vendor. We're going to get all of that vendor information in every result row for every product row. So the inner join is probably the most common, the one we're going to work with, because we want where we have matches. Again, there is an outer join where you'll get the matches plus things that don't match. Again, depending on what we're joining on, right, and some of those participation rules, right, I know my product will always have a vendor. There's always going to be a match there. So you have to find some other examples where an outer join might be more useful for us. We could look at some of those, but we'll get into more of that in some more advanced SQL. For now, we want to use the inner code, and of course, it's going slow again. It's just a website, friends. I don't know why it's taking its sweet time here. I think we confused it. Got a little bit upset. It's thinking hard. Now, if you don't like typing all of these full table names out, just like you can give an alias to a column, you can give an alias to a product, or I'm sorry, a table. Reading the word product here. The difference is you don't typically use the as keyword. So I could say product P and vendor V, and then it would be p.vcode and v.vcode. Again, you know, these table names aren't all that hard to type out. But if you like aliases, great, we can give our tables aliases just to make this join a little easier. And then if I want specific columns, I would say, hey, I want the p code and I want the right? And I could just give out all the column that I want very descriptively here, right? One at a time using that alias notation. Because as it is, we're actually going to get the v code listed twice, right? Once from the product and once from the vendor. Not that big of a deal, but if you want to be very clean about what columns are coming back, There we go. Yeah, it took less than 1/10 of a second. I believe you, Oracle. I definitely believe that took less than 1/10 of a second. So we'll see, here's the product code, product description, product something date. I don't even know what in date means. QOH, our quantity on hand, our min. I don't know what a min is. Price, discount, V code. So that's all the fields from the product table. So whatever table you list first is going to go first. Then we get all the fields from the next table that we've joined. So we get vendor code, vendor name, and all the vendor information. And notice some of these are the same, right? The same vendor is for multiple products, right? We get one vendor has many products. So we're going to get a repeat of their information here in this query result with our join. So the idea with a natural join is that it just finds columns with the same name. Again, it's generally frowned upon just in case something changes in your database and you rename something, your query breaks, and it's not all that great. The using syntax, you can, instead of saying on, you would just say using vcode, and we're just going to join using that vcode field. I much prefer this on syntax. We say, okay, this one matches this one here with our join on. Yep, and we can do those ones. You can do the outer joins. It depends on what you're trying to join. We know that we have matches here, so it's not a big deal, right? We don't have products with no vendor, so not too big of a deal here. If we had vendors with no products, so we could look that one up, right? So maybe we've added a vendor to the system, but we don't have one of their products yet. That might be an interesting case for an outer join. So if we wanted to say, hey, I want to select everything from vendor, inner join product on vendor.vcode is equal to the product.vcode. And we want, we want the outer join. So we're going to say outer join product. So I want everything from vendor, and if it matches product, all the product info. So with outer join, you can actually specify there's a left outer join and a right outer join. Typically, we'll do the left outer join where we get the table named on the left rather than the table named on the right. That's just, again, just a convention here. That's just usually what we're going to get for us. So you got lots of options. You can do some powerful things, and then you can join more than one table together, right? So if we look at that relationship between product and vendor and invoice, right? So an invoice has a customer, a line item relates to an invoice, right? So one invoice can be for many items, many line items here. So we can join across all of these different pieces here, all the different tables, to get the information if we want. And again, once we start talking about some more of these advanced options, this might be a little bit more interesting. But we can put together just one big query here. So we'll do select star, we'll say from vendor, and I'm going to go back to an inner join here because we want just the matches on. And then we want to inner join, we've got vendor to product, we want to join line on line.pcode is equal to the product.pcode. And we want to interjoin invoice on the invoice.invoice number equals the line.invoice number. And then we want to interjoin customer on customer code is equal to the invoice dot customer code. That's weird. It jumped up to the top there. Invoice dot customer code. We can join all of the tables together that relate and work through all those relationships. So one vendor has many products. One product has many line items, right? Because you want to sell it multiple times. One line item relates to one invoice. Right, but one invoice might have many line items, and then one invoice relates to one customer, but one customer can have many invoices. Right, as we kind of work through all those relationships here, we're going to get all the data out as soon as we can ever get this thing to finish running. It says it ran. That's so weird. It didn't show us any data. Wanted that outer join to finish running. Maybe we can get it to go here. I think the syntax is fine. Okay. It's just confused. We just slowed it down a little. It's not my computer, right? I'm not locked on resources. This is depressing, folks. I'm sorry. Well, maybe I am. No, that's interrupts. It'll go away in a second. There it goes. Oh, 94. Decent amount of CPU using Firefox. This is all we're doing. Huh. That's really weird. Still no results. That's really unfortunate. Well, you can try it and you'll see you just get nothing where there's no matches. Let's see if we can get our big query here to run. Come on, run it all. There's nothing wrong with that line, friend. Just mighty confused. Nope, it's not going here. All right, well, while that loads, we'll look at the next section here, so using the order by. So we said select what from what table. Those ones are required, right? Then you can have it optionally in order by. So we can say, okay, well, when I get my results back, I want to order them in a particular fashion, right? So we could say, hey, I want to order by, let's do, how about vendor dot, what do we have? Vendor vname. So I want to order everything by the vendor's name, then by the product description. Product, oh goodness, it took everything away. Product dot p description. Oh, do we get the results? It might be showing us results. It's fantastic. I think this just does not jive well with my screen recording, which is super weird. We're going to see we get all these columns. We get all the vendor columns, then all the product columns, then all, here, so let me bump this down. So we get all the vendor, all the product, all the line, all the invoice, all the customer. We'll see all the way across product, and then we see the line items, right? So this was the number of units, the price, the invoice number. Now we're into the invoice, right? We get a customer on the invoice, we get the invoice date, and then we get the customer information, right, all the way through our customers. So you can join through all the different relationships as you want to get any particular kind of information. And then let's say, okay, let's now sort by my vendor. Order by is sorting by. How do I want to sort these things here? And we can give them one, you can give multiple, right, by first and then second sort, or just a single sort, depending on how you want to order them, right? Whatever you want to do first. Great, we can do all that. So this will be for every vendor that is the same, then we'll sort them by the product description. So that's probably not going to run here, but you can do a multi-level sort, which is really cool. And you can also sort backwards if you want. By default, it's alphabetical, so A, B, C, D, or if you do something numeric, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to go the other direction, you use the descending keyword, or DESC. So it just say, hey, DESC, descending sort, instead of the regular sort. Just an option here when you're doing your sorts. All right, we'll call that good. We'll come back with the next video to look at our where clauses.